Good evening to everybody and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. We've reached the middle of another working week and we have seen a fair amount of rain, has to be said, over the last several days, even it feels like weeks as well. These are the 72-hour rainfall totals of Meteosil and across the UK as well as Ireland, and pretty much everywhere has picked up rain, but the highest amounts southwestern portions of England, Wales, Scotland, as well as Ireland. And over the next several days, we are concerned about some very significant amounts of rain on top of what we've already seen. So this is, as I've harped on about for quite some time, this is turning out to be quite a wet November, certainly through the first half of the month anyway. It means to be seen how wet the second half will be. But these are the rainfall totals expected of the ECMWF through, this is Sunday the 16th of November, and what is going to happen is we've got another system, a main system that is well out to the west of Spain and Portugal. It has been generating some heavy rainfall even down in the Canary Islands, so folks perhaps taking a late autumn break is experiencing some wet conditions here as well. It was just a week or so ago we were talking about some parts of the Canaries topping out at 34, 35 Celsius, but the wet conditions down here, there is actually a system that is going to spin off to the east of that circulation. High pressure over the continent, that low pressure out over the eastern North Atlantic, going to generate a new feature, drive another surge of warm, moist air northwards, and as we start to see northerly winds usher in Arctic air into the northern half of the UK, that warmth colliding with cold coming south is going to then enhance that boundary and rainfall amount and also rate. And there is concern for some significant amounts. Now, easterly winds is actually going to mean, if you've been watching BBC or the Met Office talking about easterly flow with a lot of rainfall, it's east-facing upslopes of southern England and Wales that is going to be at the focal point in terms of concern with regards to rainfall. So this is the rainfall totals, probably in excess of another 100 plus millimetres in the wettest areas, particularly so up until Friday. Let's just quickly put on the overview chart here and see what it's indicating. We'll go to the broader view. This is a little bit of a short video tonight, so I do apologise for that. I'm needing to head off to work. Let's look at the Northwest Europe view and see if it's going to upload here. I quite like this new version. It seems to be, I don't know if it's just me or not, or the internet, but it seems to be a little bit slow in its upload speed, which is like I say, it might just be me, I don't know. But let's play back through here the sequence of events. We've got this next line of very heavy precipitation. It's like a convective band here that is bringing wet conditions down across the Azores. We've got that area of low pressure well to the northwest of Iberia, southwest of Ireland here. You've obviously got that southerly airflow, some very, very mild air embedded within that southerly flow. We've got this little warm sector situation developing here. So this is during the course of today, and what you've got is with this kind of situation here with an area of low pressure just off the southwest coast of Norway, an area of low pressure to the southwest of the UK. What you've got is a southerly airflow moving into the south, while we've got a north to northeasterly flow coming in to the northern half of the UK. So if we play through this, you can see here, this is during the course of tonight and into tomorrow. The next band of rain moves northwards here. That then comes up against the resistance of flow coming in from a northeasterly direction. But it's this feature here, as we'll see, so you can see a new area of low pressure spinning off that main low that is going to then bring this warm sector situation here. So you've got the warm front moving northwards. All the while you've got colder air coming down from the north, and what happens is that boundary essentially stalls out over central England, North Wales, and that is where you're going to have the clash zone of very heavy precipitation. Some winteriness perhaps over the tops of the North Welsh mountains, for example, but you've got this area of high pressure 1029 millibars to the northwest of the UK, area of low pressure anchored to the southwest, and of course you've got that boundary with southerly winds and northerly winds combining to then bring some significant amounts of rain. Now, if we put on the 850 temperatures, you can see quite clearly the differential in air mass. So just again, bear with a little second here. These are the 850 temperatures. Hopefully it will load up reasonably quick. But certainly some very concerning, rainfall amounts likely to come about here. So look at this air mass here coming up through France. It's actually getting deflected into the central region of Europe here, with that presence of colder air coming in aboard north to northeasterly winds. So as we play through this loop, you've got that situation developing here. This is during the course of Friday. So there's that boundary sitting right over the North Midlands here between relatively milder and something colder further north, particularly so up across the far north of the UK. Big contrast in temperature. If we put on the temperatures of the UK Met model here for tomorrow, but also for Friday. Let's just see here. Let's put on the max temperatures. So again, single figure temperatures up across the north, but anything but single figures here down across more southern areas. So this is during the course of today. Let me just quickly, in fact, just put on the current temperatures. So we're talking about 6 to 9 Celsius across the north, 13, 15 Celsius across the south. And that gradient is actually going to increase over the next couple of days. So back to the Met model here. I know I jump around a little bit here. I do apologize for that. Let's go into the day on Thursday. So a chilly old night tonight into tomorrow morning across the north. Low single figures, patchy frost, perhaps some ice around as well on untreated surfaces. But this is the course of tomorrow. So this is Thursday. Single figures across the far north of England, incorporating all of Scotland as well as Ireland and Northern Ireland, perhaps holding on to double figures, Central and Southern Ireland, for example, but Northern Ireland, mid to high single figures, perhaps a 10 in a couple of spots. But down across the south and southeast, for example, you're talking about 14, 15, 16, possibly a 17 Celsius, all the while we're perhaps struggling to get much out of low single figures during the course of tomorrow, as that boundary that swept northwards during the course of last night, heavy persistent rainfall, as that frontal system became kind of stalled out here across this part of northern Scotland, then get sunk back south again, while we've got more features coming in from a southerly direction that then bumps up against the resistance of that northerly airflow. But we essentially are going to be protected up here across the north of the UK compared to across the south of the UK here. A very active boundary. There's the temperatures into Thursday night and the Friday morning. Some sub-zero temperatures here, if you notice. But look at down across the south here. This is midnight Friday. You've got 12, 13, 14 Celsius across the far south. Below freezing across the far north. Pretty impressive stuff here when you think about this. This is a pretty big gradient here. And then during the course of Friday, we're generally talking about a downward trend in temperature. Look at this here. Downward trend. Look at this far south. You've got 13, 14 Celsius. And the time frame here, 12Z. Look at by the time we get to 15Z, you're starting to squeeze that warmth out. And then during the course of Saturday, different story altogether. Still clinging on to perhaps some low teens across the south coast, for example. But even across the Midlands, Wales, and even south central England, you're talking about single figure highs as opposed to 14, 15, 16 Celsius. Wouldn't be surprised if we get an 18 Celsius during the course of tomorrow. So, interesting contrast for sure. Let me look at the temperature anomaly chart here. This is the 2 meter temperature anomalies of the GFS. You can see quite nicely. So warmer, mild across most of the UK during the course of Monday. So this was back at the beginning of the week. Then you notice here, area of low pressure pulls that warmth northwards here. Very mild across the board during the course of last night and into this morning, widespread. Let's have a look at the minimum temperatures. Last night it wasn't quite as cold. Last night for sure, you're talking about 5 Celsius at the very least. So that's the lowest temperature during the course of this morning here across the far north. As that boundary lifted north, it pulled some of that warmer air. So it's a kind of tug of war, and the UK finds itself within that tug of war. But yet, then you see here as we play it during the course of today, there's that cooler than average air mass now starting to descend south here into Thursday. Warmth across much of England and Wales. Then as we move into the day on Friday, much colder than average air across Scotland, for example, still holding on to warmer than average across most of England and Wales. And then as we continue to play it through, look at how warm it is across the near continent, for example. But then we get into the colder air as high pressure to the west, lower pressure to the east or to the southeast pulls in a northerly airflow, and we've got this cold air regime, and it'll be interesting to see. And again, this is going to be looking at just how cold temperatures may get. This is very similar to last November, but I'm hesitant to suggest that it's going to be as severe as last November, where we had record breaking first 7 days of the month in terms of warmth, astonishing warmth. Even up here, 17.7 Celsius for a maximum, and then we flipped on ahead. I had a temperature of minus 6.4. So, I had a high of 17.7, a low of minus 6. I had a couple of inches of snow on the ground, windy conditions, just downright winter-like weather on the heels of that very warm beginning to November. And I feel as if, global sea surface temperature anomalies are very similar to the MJOs in a similar state as well. If we look at this here, now, I'm having issues loading this up. I do apologise. I cannot pull this up because I want to show you the 850 temperature trend. I don't know why that is doing that here. Just bear with. So there is Inverness. These are the 850 temperatures of the GFS. Above average, the begin the working week, and then it goes below average. So temperatures hovering around. So that white line is the ensemble mean. You can see here that we've got temperatures at or below minus 5 Celsius all the way through to about the 22nd, 23rd of the month here, perhaps climbing towards average again by the end of November. But certainly a very interesting trend this here. Look at how much it goes below average and then remains below average for Inverness. Looking at London then, the south. So that's the north, that's Inverness. This is the south, this is London. You can see here firmly above average, plus 9 Celsius at 850 millibars over London. Drops to around minus 5 Celsius at 850, around about the 17th, 18th. So that's a big drop, near 10 to minus 5 Celsius in the space of the next 3 or 4 days. Then London holds on to that temperature of around minus 5 at 850. Then around the 22nd, 23rd, it starts to go back up to around about average. So Inverness stays below average for longer. The south may flirt with something warmer trying to come back into play once again. So certainly some rather interesting things here. I'm going to have to speed things up, I'm afraid, here, but I want to show you the temperature anomalies. This is off the GFS ensemble for the upcoming 5-day period. Cool in the north, warmer across most of England, Wales, Southern Ireland, a little bit below average across Northern Ireland. Days 6 through 10, firmly below average. So that is quite the flip from what we've seen. Remember how warm it's been. This has been the warmest 10 days to November on record for the UK and Ireland. The 11 to 15 day, we start to moderate that chill a little bit. That takes us out to the 27th of November. Now, I did promise that I would show snow charts. Let's have a quick look then at the snow prospects. And we'll look at this in much more detail coming up, by the way. So don't worry, I'm going to look at the snow. I've been hesitating in talking about how cold and how much prospect there is for snow, just purely on the fact that it's too far away. And then you jump onto the kind of hype bandwagon, so to speak. And I'm trying to avoid that here. But you can see here, if we look all the way out to the back half of the weekend, Is the model printing anything out? This is the ECMWF model here. I don't know if this is actually, there we go. So this is all the way to next Thursday, and you can see here, snow on the ground. Skip back here, nothing. So all the way out to Tuesday next week, the 18th of November, it's not really picking up on anything according to the ECMWF run. But by the time we skip on another 24, 36 hours, start to see the snow begin to accumulate here across northern half of far north of England, probably the Pennines, perhaps the Cumbrian Fells, southern uplands, high ground in the central belt, and then across Highland region, we may see snow even down to relatively low levels. So if we go to the overview chart here quickly, I did say that I would cut this short, continuing to go on here, but I want to just show you the bigger picture, of course. Let's look at the broader picture. And this is, like I say, the overview of the ECMWF, just to see how this plays out. So obviously we're going to see these boundaries moving north, warm, moist air, more heavy, significant rainfall with flooding a concern. And then as we progress through the course of the weekend, we're going to see that colder air continuing to penetrate further south. So you've got this battleground, high pressure 1031 south of Iceland, area of low pressure directly underneath that at 986 millibars. You've got this confliction in wind, and then of course you've got that boundary separating the two air masses here. Continue to play it through. There's that high then starting to kind of build in over the northern half of the UK. Got northerly airflow, so there's colder and colder air coming down from the north, but we're generally in high pressure here. Even though the center of that high is to the west over the Atlantic, you're still experiencing the influence of that high. That could deliver some notably cold nights, by the way, next week, especially if you manage to get some sort of snow-covered ground, which I think it may be marginal through at least the first half of next week. But certainly where you've got clearer skies, lighter winds, and that's a clean Arctic air mass, you are going to see the temperatures coming down, especially with the winds being light. Notice the ECM has this feature running that northerly airflow out to about Wednesday of next week. This is a long way out. This is a week away, so wouldn't take that too much as gospel just at the minute, but that would be potentially a significant snowmaker, especially the fact that it's coming down from a colder source region, got a strong area of high pressure. Notice here that we've lost the low and we've now replaced it with high pressure just to the northeast of the Azores. That extends all the way up into Greenland, so you've got that direct connection here between Arctic and UK with an area of low pressure running that northerly flow. It's going to be very interesting to see. Now, if you put on the overview chart here of the GFS, we'll look at the 528 thickness line in terms of a marker for snow. And you notice here that as we progress into Thursday, that 528 line starts to come into the north of the UK. Continue to play through. It's not really showing up. Continue to play through. That 528 line is kind of swinging through. There's that feature that the ECM picked up on. Not quite as notable on the GFS compared to the ECMWF, but you're starting to see that 528 line start to sink southwards as that low pulls to the east. But again, this is fantasy land. This is a long way out, but certainly interesting stuff. Lots to come. So I hope you can stick around here in the channel, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time with more. We'll look at much more detail coming up as well. So enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Bye for now.